morning, everyone. Good morning, VFW Headquarters. My name is Dave Spiva. I'm the Associate Editor of VFW Magazine. Also want to give a special shout out to Post 1719 in Chandler, Oklahoma. Great up-and-coming post in Central Oklahoma. As you know, today marks 23 years since the 9/11 terrorist attacks in the United States. Nearly 3,000 lives were lost that day, and that includes 55 military members who were killed at the Pentagon. Today, the Publications Department wants to tell you about two of those service members, both of whom were VFW members. Navy Petty Officer, 3rd Class, Jamie Lynn Fallon. She was 23 at the time of her death. Fallon was awaiting her discharge at the time. She was a life member of Post 1503 in Dale City, Virginia. She also left behind a 7-month-old boy named Caleb. Also, Army National Guard Chief Warrant Officer 4 William Ruth. He was 57 years old and a former middle school teacher. Ruth was a member of VFW Post 10076 in Mount Airy, Maryland. And actually, the day before his death on September 10th, he was sworn in as post commander. The post is now named in his honor, CW4 Bill Ruth. People describe Ruth as a person who loved the VFW and was a believer in education and knew the importance of it. I encourage you all to read their stories. You all have them. And let's remember these patriots. Let's remember the sacrifice they made even before that day. But let's turn this negative into a positive. If you really think about it, that's what veterans do. We turn negatives into positives. I'm sure many of you remember where you were when the attacks happened. Maybe you were in high school. I mean, I don't know. Was someone in grade school? Was anyone in grade school? No? Oh, you were? Oh. Dang. Okay. Well, whether you were in high school, college, at work, in the military, doesn't matter. I don't think anyone here knew what was going to happen after that day, but I bet to say post 9/11 veterans had the same feeling that something needed to be done. This problem needed to be solved. That's because veterans are problem solvers. After 9/11, this country saw an influx of volunteer warfighters who wanted to serve their country. While everyone was focused on war efforts, VFW foresaw another issue. The VFW knew that the vast majority of those troops would ultimately leave the military. One day, these warfighters were going to come home, and we needed a plan to help them transition back into the civilian world. Transitioning out of the military is not easy. This is something the VFW knows firsthand. But turning negatives into positives is what veterans do. Veterans learn from their mistakes. Veterans are problem solvers. The VFW thought that maybe if we had a plan for these veterans who came back home from war, they would have a fighting chance to successfully integrate back into society. And much like Chief Warrant Officer William Ruth, the VFW knew that education was the answer to solving that problem. Remember, veterans are problem solvers. The VFW championed post 9/11 GI Bill, which was enacted in 2008, was able to do just that. It offered veterans and family members tuition, a housing allowance, and even money for books. Without VFW's advocacy, we would not have the post 9/11 GI Bill today. Instead, we would have a generation of veterans unprepared for life after war. The GI Bill was never about giving veterans a free ride to college. Think of the post 9/11 GI Bill as an investment into our country. America needs problem solvers, and the VFW knows where to find them. VFW also was one of the most passionate advocates of the Honoring Our Pact Act. It was passed in 2022. This landmark legislation offered post 9/11 veterans, as well as those from the Gulf War and Vietnam War eras, access to health care for toxic exposure. I want to thank everyone for being here today on Patriots Day. On behalf of the Publications Department, I want to thank you and say thank you for being a Patriot. Thanks, everyone.